lives lost, communities living in fear. This is not just politics. This is human being. We are talking about human being. But sometimes you see people, I don't know whether the West, they see it as if it is just statistics like that. The cost of inaction is measured in lives, not statistics. Many lives has gone in the zoo. Many innocent lives, children, women, elderly, on a daily basis, helpless people. So what needs to happen? Do you ask yourself, what needs to happen? What needs to happen is that we must continue on this awareness. Continue on the awareness wherever you are, in any platform, no matter how little, continue to do it. People need to know what is happening in the zoological republic. There has to be accountability. Those who claim to be on the top and the front must be held accountable. Leaders must be held responsible for protecting all citizens. We must continue to hold accountable all the idiots that claim to be the leaders in the Southeast, all the idiots that claim to be elites, all those who are bringing this deadly janjaweed in our territory. They must be held accountable. In the midst of that, there must be a dialogue. Real, honest, inclusive conversation must take place. Real, honest, inclusive conversation must take place to end the contraption called Nigeria, for peace to reign. And finally, international attention is seriously needed, like yesterday. Not interference, but engagement. There must be massive engagement. There must be engagement that support peace, justice, and stability. But you see, Nigeria, they will not engage with the Biafrans, but instead they engage with the terrorists. That is why when you look at how Nigeria operates, you will understand that no sensible human being will continue to attach him or herself to Nigeria. Judging from the way Nigeria operates, no sensible person will continue to attach himself as one Nigerian. A country that will not dialogue with genuine people that have a genuine concern, but instead they choose to go and beg the terrorists, bring them into the society, pay their trip to abroad, go for training and come back and continue their terrorism. It is sad. It is very, very sad. But are we going to be silent and say we don't know what is happening? We have seen it and we know it, and we must continue to speak. As we proceed, I want to play one of the video of the brother from Middle Belt, who is in the United States and making calls. I want you to hear what he said on his program, because it is important that we don't just speak on our own. We will hear from other people also, hear their voice and their own concern. This atrocity has been committed against Biafrans for a long time, and nobody is saying a word. But today, it has spread to every indigenous people. It has spread out. For a long time, we have been crying and complaining. Sometimes they see us as we talk too much, we worry too much, we complain too much. But today, it has gotten to the doorstep of everybody. I want us to hear this brother, what he had to say.
I've been thinking very lately how it is so unfortunate and so terrible to be persecuted in a wrong part of the earth. We in Africa, in Nigeria, and then finding yourself as a persecuted Christian in that part of the earth, and the part of the earth that is almost for.
Did you hear that? That it is terrible to find yourself in a wrong part of the world and be a persecuted person. This is where we have been for many decades. since 1945. In a wrong part of where you'll be persecuted and you will still be blamed. You that is being persecuted will still be blamed. Even the citizens will join to blame you. Now, just for some few years now, they are seeing what we have seen for many decades. Let's hear him.
Forgotten and neglected is one of the worst things any human being could face. But that's the reality
That
of
is what we have been facing.
we in Nigeria, the persecuted Christians especially, Christians who are otherwise so peace-loving, who just want to be left alone to practice their faith in peace and be on their land, But for so long, they've been placed on the edge of a precipice. They've been held under siege by Islamist terrorist organization with their enablers in government and their accomplices in the Christian community, in the leadership of some of the Christian states, including, of course, Benue State. These are accomplices of the jihadists. And it's quite very unfortunate. For right now, there's something we're facing. These guys, because they have a very long agenda, an agenda that is so long, the period of its coverage is like the next 100 years. So you shouldn't expect them to just lie low so easily because we are fighting back. No, it's not going to be easy. For some of us know this, and that's why we ain't going to stop soon. But our whole life will revolve around this struggle, just like it has revolved around many other struggles. Struggle is my life, in the language of Nelson Mandela, and that has defined my entire being, me as Frangoto. Struggle. So for so long, the jihadists and their enablers have always led the narrative. They've led the narrative. They call their killing of Christians, they call it Famahera crisis. We were watching as they were leading this narrative. They call it Famahera crisis in those days. Then they changed it to climate change. Then they changed it to communal clashes. And if you are still doubting, or if you are still wondering if there's anything like Christian genocide in Nigeria, or the truism of such, you don't need to look further. You've seen several times where the jihadists have come out in public in videos, Boko Haram, Fulani terrorists, Fulani kidnappers, Ansarullah Kurawa, Ashwab, talking about Islamizing the whole of us. You've seen it. You've seen the Sharia legal system and a policy geared toward Islamization, staying pari passu with our own laws, the laws of the Federation. You've seen it. You've also recently seen them drive a different narrative, using the likes of one very popular charlatan called David Hundeyin.
Exactly. I agree with you.
This is a young man who some time ago brought up a story about President Bola Tinubu, and because many Nigerians listen to him, so he took it upon himself to be a spearhead of narratives in Nigeria, that he could conjure up any narrative and a lot of people believe. And so,
you see, everything that is playing out today is what they did to us. When they were killing Biafrans since 1945 to date, nobody is reporting it. This thing you are shouting today is because it just began to affect other Christians in the north. They have been doing this massacre against us for a long time. When they say they will say it's riot, they call it what they call it those is riot. They say Kaduna riot, Yola riot, Suso riot. Nobody pays attention to it. But it was always massacre of the Igbos and destruction of their businesses. I was in the north when all this were happening. I thank God some of them came to confess that it was started from the Igbos. And whenever it happened, Yoruba media will change that. They tell you it's just a riot. It's just a protest. It's just a riot. That's what they were calling the riot. You hear about Kaduna riot. You hear about Kanu riot. You hear that Plateau riot. Every time, go and check all those times you are hearing about those riots. It was against massacre of the Igbo people. It's only this time they see now they cannot be able to go towards the Igbos as such, and because they don't have that support they had before, now they expand it to other Christians in the north. And now that idiot called David Udein is the one today in the front line. pushing a different narrative. Every time he come and tell you, oh, the Western, there are Western influence, there are Western and sponsoring this thing. It is the West sponsoring. West sponsoring what? In a country that called themselves a sovereign state. A sovereign state. The West will tell you don't go and protect your people. Is it the West that tell you don't answer a call when they call a military? Don't answer a call. Is it the West that is telling the military don't go and rescue people? Is it the West that will tell you don't go and fight when they are fighting your people? Go and rescue them. Don't go and rescue them. And that idiot will come online and begin to blame every time begin to blame the West. Call himself David Udeyin. An idiot, a clown. And he will be the first one to accuse you of being influenced by the Western influence. He will be the first one to talk about the Western influence. Is it only in Nigeria they have what's in there? You talk about resources. You talk about mineral, it's about mineral resources. Mineral resources in Nigeria, who is controlling it even since independence to date? Who is in charge? Who is in charge of the mineral resources? Since independence to date, who is in charge? You are talking about mineral resources. All the oil companies and the escapades that are there, who are in charge? Is it not the West? So what is different about it? Nonsense.
He, in conjunction with his Islamic enablers, the enablers of this Islamic terrorism in Nigeria, have brought up a different narrative today to say that the killings in Nigeria, the killing of Christians in Nigeria is being spearheaded by who they call the imperialists.
Nonsense.
And they say these imperialists are the United States,
Nonsense.
the United Kingdom, and Canada. Okay, these are people who have a problem with these countries. Obviously, because they were denied entry, they were denied visa, they sought for asylum, and they were denied. And then they started a anti-West agenda, a serious anti-West agenda. And then right now they brought a narrative that these countries are the ones instigating this crisis in the middle belt of Nigeria, in Kaduna State, in Plateau State, in Nasarawa State, in Benue State, in Taraba State, leading the killings of Tiv people, Idoma people, from Agatu to Ohimini to Apa to Gwe West to Gwe to Makudi to Guma to Logo to Ukum to Kwandi to Obi local government to Kiana local government in Nasarawa State to Awe to Mangu to Kajuru to Kachia to Kafanchan to Kaguru. You know, unfortunately, but the truth of the matter is that we've gone beyond this. They ain't gonna succeed. We shall never allow them lead the narrative. We, the victims, we hold the real narrative and will continue to push the real narrative. And because we call on countries like the United States, for instance, to stand up, which they are doing, and we call on many organizations in the United States to stand up, which they are doing, these guys have become so apprehensive. I mean, the jihadis and their enablers and their sympathizers and accomplices. And so they are twisting the narrative to say these missionaries in Nigeria coming from America are agents of the CIA, agents of the imperialists to cause violence in Nigeria. And so David Hunde made a video on the platform called Spearhead and used equipping the persecuted to say equipping the persecuted has been sponsoring acts of violence in the middle belt of Nigeria. And then creating a link between our executive director, George Saul, as a sponsor of Alex Barbie. Come on. Okay. Let's face it. Alex Barbie is my friend. And I, Frank, work for Equipping the Persecuted, which is different from Alex Barbie's organization, which is Beauty Zion. Even though Alex Barbie is an American, and George Saul, the executive director of Equipping the Persecuted, is an American, I, Frank Oto, was the same guy who brought the two together. They never knew themselves. I brought them together because Alex was rebuilding houses in my community, Yerota.
Yes.
I brought in my organization, Equipping the Persecuted, my executive director, who now assisted Alex. Instead of we going to rebuild these houses, he assisted Alex, to build, at least through us. Alex Barbie is able to put up 20 more houses to the houses he was building in my own community. Now, there are a lot of American European missionaries in Nigeria doing very marvelous job. They've been in Nigeria for more than 200 years. A lot of them, they brought up most of the positivities we are seeing in Nigeria today, from schools to churches to orphanages to hospitals. While the jihadis were fighting jihad in the 19th century, Ottoman Danfodio, while they were waging Islamist jihad and killing people, shedding blood all over, the Christian missionaries were in Nigeria, building schools, building hospitals, stopping the killing of twins. Mary Slessor in Calabar. As far back as that time, while the jihadis were shedding blood, Christian missionaries were providing relief. We are building hospitals, we are building churches and orphanages and schools. And many of them are still there, standing in the gap for us, for what our government could not do, what many individuals, elites, rich people could not do in Nigeria. And that is what Equipping the Persecuted is doing. So they are trying to, bring that narrative to sort of condemn the Equipping the Persecuted, to make them look like they're agents of destruction in Nigeria. Because they are afraid of what we are coming with. They are afraid that we are providing terror tracks. We have people on ground providing this report, and we're providing communities with impending attacks. And we're always 99% correct. And so they've started becoming apprehensive for some of us, the Nigerians, the victims who are working with these guys. I came to the United States long before the Yorota massacre of last year happened. I came to the United States 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and for my graduate program in public policy and non-profit. As far back as that time, I came to study non-profit and public policy. The non-profit part of it is to get many of these United States organizations to come and intervene in our plight in Nigeria, most especially my state. That was long before the Yorota massacre happened. And so, even after I've graduated, as a Catholic, I got a job with Catholic Charities. But, the purview of Catholic Charities here is just about the homeless guys here in America, And then I got another one with Peru Mission. But it's about a mission going to Peru in South America. So I was like, how could I be, catering for the less privileged of other places where my own people are the worst of the less privileged? And that was why I sort of had to create a way to work with Equipping the Persecuted, because their target is Nigeria. So I approached them. And right now, with my brief time in Equipping the Persecuted, I was able to influence enough of relief efforts to Kwande, to Guma, to even the Tiv people in Nasarawa State who have been forgotten for so long. Been forgotten completely by their government and by other organizations. And we're doing so much. But this is what is making these guys apprehensive. And so these guys went to pick up pictures from my Facebook, which is a public Facebook. I've never restricted my Facebook to friends or to even friends of friends. It has always been public because we don't have anything to hide. They went to pick up pictures from my Facebook, posted a lot of pictures of our activities, and I do tag people and who they are and their designation. Then this David Hunde picked it up and was trying to deceive people who may not know by thinking he has made a research somewhere and found out that these are the guys. Come on. That's how wicked and callous people could be. People who made themselves agents for the devil. But my life has always revolved around struggle. Maybe these guys don't know about me. My life has revolved around struggle. 25 years ago in 2001, when killing of thieves were happening in Zaki Biam, I had never gone close to the Sankara axis of Benue State as a thief guy who was born and bred in Jos. And BSU was the first thing that ever brought me to Benue State University. And at that point, I had never been close to Sankara. But I, Frank Oto, together with Tengun K and Tefawaro Yaradua, would put up one of the biggest protests, in short, the biggest protest in the history of Benue State. In October of 2001, over the killing of thieves in Zakibiam, the IDP camp in Benue at that point was directly opposite the gate of BSU First Campus, the Catholic church there. I had never seen IDP in my life until that time. I never knew that in future, even my own family members would be IDP. So I staged that protest To the extent that that was the first time they scrambled helicopters in the NAF base, Air Force Base of Makodi. 3 helicopters came to quell that protest. They came as low as this altitude, pouring water and pouring smoke on us. And I was arrested and detained for 6 days. And the governor of Benue State closed down BSU and imposed curfew. The first time curfew was imposed in Benue State, 6 to 6. Before then, we led a protest over the increment of scholarship. And it was because of my speech during that protest that Governor Akume really fell in love with me. And 2 years later, or 3 years later, in 2003, I became his coordinator for youth and students for his re-election campaign, becoming the youngest guy in the history of Benue State in my early 20s to be the coordinator of youth and students of a sitting governor's re-election campaign organization. And putting up a team of leaders, of youth who today have become leaders in Benue State. The likes of Austin Agada, the likes of Toile Uchi, Fanen Amengi, Sateti Se, Shimabi Vembe, who today is with the SGF. That was the team I put up as coordinator of youth and student of Akume campaign in 2003. You know, because of my consummate activism, non-compromisable activism, I was expelled and went into, in my final year, 500 level second semester, without appearing before any panel. I was just given a letter of expulsion, saying I was expelled for gross insubordination, for constantly disagreeing. I became the first university student in the history of Nigeria who was expelled for gross insubordination, not cultism, as others may confuse themselves with, or gross or malpractice, or any form of gross misconduct, but gross insubordination. I became the first university student to be expelled for such. I picked up myself and went and restarted abroad. And when I went to study law in the United Kingdom, the then governor Suswan sponsored my education in the United Kingdom. But when I came back in December of 2011, and in January of 2012, when Jonathan removed subsidy, by the second day of January, Benue State became the 3rd state in Nigeria to react, and it was courtesy me. Frank, I put up a team. We staged one of the biggest protests again in Makodi over the subsidy removal. January 2nd, one of the earliest states to react immediately. I put up young men and women who took up to the streets of Makodi that were accosted by police. I asked everybody to sit down between High Level Roundabout and Wurukun Roundabout on the road there. We all sat down, the likes of Ukankuru, Swande Age, Joe Pogzi, David Haba, Collins Uma, all these guys, Austin Agada. And the then Commissioner of Police was there himself, who later became DIG John Haruna, who died via helicopter crash in Jos. I believe I was part of the legal team that went to court, ECOWAS court, when Mafo of Okema, Father Okema and David Obole instituted action. The legal team led by Barrister Terence Vembe. That's part of the legal team over this genocide as far back as 2016. In 2017, we staged a protest to the National Assembly over the genocide. In that same 2017, we went to the National Assembly again to make a presentation before Police Affairs Committee over this Christian genocide. So we addressed the National Assembly in Nigeria, and we still addressed the Congress. So I have addressed 2 Congresses, the National Assembly of Nigeria and this over the genocide. And then now you are coming to see we're being used, we're being paid to claim that they are killing our people. How wicked could people be? But unfortunately for them, like I mentioned, struggle has always been our life. Struggle has defined our life. And we'll always succeed in our struggle. I've faced a lot of struggles. I've faced political struggles. I've faced struggles everywhere. I was born for this. For those who may not be able to speak. For those who have been killed. For all our family members, all our kinsmen who have been sent to the graves and can no longer speak. We shall continue to speak for them. And we will triumph. Because darkness can never comprehend light. We will stand with the light. And God's help will progress and will succeed. So this is just beginning. This is just beginning. The jihadists, they are enablers, they are sympathizers like David Hundeyi, and they are sympathizers even in the government in Benue. They are accomplices who have always turned the narrative upside down. We'll never succeed. History has a long eye. And then we are coming with determined minds. And when our mind holds this kind of principle, nothing can defeat it. And this is what we're transmitting to other young people around. And the next generation will remain insurmountable. By God's grace, we shall succeed.
You have heard him. Everything he said here are realities. This is what we have faced for many years. We, the Biafran people. We have been facing these challenges for many, many years. Nobody listens to us when we cry. Even some of them, then they think we are noisemakers. They think we are talking too much. But today, just for a few years, they are feeling the heat. They are feeling the heat. This same thing David Udehi is doing against the Christian genocide is what they did against the Biafran people.